And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I'm so excited to welcome back Alessandra Torre, aka AR Torre, here to give us the inside scoop the day before the book comes out on her brand new book, A Fatal Affair. Alessandra, welcome back. Tell us about this book.
Thank you so much, Sara. I'm so excited to be here. And this is A Fatal Affair. It launches June 20th, which is tomorrow. I don't know. Yeah, we're broadcasting live. So A Fatal Affair is set in Hollywood. And at the beginning, two dead bodies are found at the home of like Hollywood's biggest star, actually biggest star couple. So think like Brad and Angelina, back when Brad and Angelina were together. So if two dead bodies are found at their house, so that's kind of where the book starts. And then it's unraveling and figuring out everything from there. So I would call it a psychological suspense. There's a lot of different storylines. There's like a romance subplot, but it's an unconventional one. And yeah, it's full of twists and turns. So that's A Fatal Affair.
The twists and turns that Alessandra is so well known for. Well, I can't wait to get the inside scoop on all this delicious dirt. And we got a lot to talk about, woman. We got a lot to talk about. But first, I just want to welcome everyone who's watching. We are going live to 7 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So, hey, mystery and thriller loving friends, no matter where you're watching from, Facebook or YouTube, you're in the right place. This is the right time. It is Mystery Monday. And because Mondays can be murder, we're going to make them a little less painful for you. If you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, welcome. We're so happy. Here's the drill. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors. You get to ask them anything. So ask Alessandra about her writing process, her publishing process, her creative process, this crazy book idea. Her protagonist is in love with 2 men. They happen to be twins. What? We need to know all the dirt. So just get the questions going in the comments and we will get them right over to her. Hi, Renee, joining us from Southeast Florida. Last time Alessandra was here, she was in Southeast Florida and there was a tornado rocking the Wi-Fi.
Yeah. And I'm in Key West. So I'm in South Florida. So I say I'm not too far from you, Renee. Florida is such a humongous state by the time you go from point to point, but we're fellow Floridians, so it's nice to see you.
And it's nice to have a fellow Floridian, and it's nice that you're not, hunkered down under.
Yes, I'm very happy. So we'll see how it goes. I'm at a place in my house that I haven't streamed from before, so I'll be curious to see like how the internet treats me. But
let's all keep our fingers and toes crossed. If you're watching from a private Facebook group, you are a mystery user to the rest of us. Everyone in the group can see you, but everyone outside the group, you are secret and undercover. We have someone just like that saying, yay. Alessandra, you are a new author to me, Renee says. Nice to meet you. So, Alessandra,
so
yay. So, on Mystery and Thriller Mavens, we're all about connecting readers to their favorite authors and introducing them to their next favorite authors. Now, this is not your first book, but for the people that you are a new author to, tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Yeah, no problem. So for those of you who aren't familiar with my work, I do write under 2 names. One is Alessandra Torre and one is AR Torre. And AR Torre is kind of my dark murderous side. So I grew up reading suspense novels. That's my jam. I love a good serial killer. I love mysteries. I love twists. But when I started writing in 2012, a romance novel is what popped out. And it shocked me more than anyone. And that romance novel ended up becoming a huge success. I got a book deal. I suddenly had tens of thousands of fans and readers. And so I wrote another romance novel and then another. And before I knew it, I had 15, 20 romance novels. So I have a big audience. I've hit the New York Times list with my romance books. But I'd say 5 or 6 years ago, I was at the point where I really was successful enough where I was like, I'm going to write a book just for me. And that book I wrote was The Ghostwriter. And that book had no romance. My readers kept saying, is there any romance? I said, no, there's no romance in this book whatsoever. And that was The Ghostwriter. And I wrote it just for me. And I said, I don't care if it only sells 5 copies. This book's for me. And that book ended up becoming a huge success. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna switch horses. I'm going to write suspense novels, and I do write romance novels every once in a while now, but for the last 4 years, I've only written suspense novels, and those are under A.R. Torre. So if you see A.R. Torre, it is a suspense novel. My first trilogy under this name does have a romance, and it's a little racy. So I'm just going to warn you guys, if you see the girl in 6E, it's apartment 6E, that is a racy book. It's not really romance. It's very much gore and death and and drama. But I'm just going to warn you of that. But my other more recent releases, these are all with Thomas and Mercer. These are all free in KU, and audio is free in KU. They are all domestic suspense, psychological suspense, set in California, typically in like wealthy, drama-filled situations.
So Alessandra warns us that this gets a little racy, and we all lean in for the tea. So Alessandra, as a New York Times best-selling romance author, but also a dark and murderous psychological thriller author, I mean, I don't know anyone else who does both genres. Do you prefer one, and why?
Oh, 1,100%. I prefer suspense to romance. In part because I'm not a romance reader. So, and a lot of people who read my romances are like, oh, these are so different. And they're different because I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't know like how a romance novel is supposed to be told. And those novels almost all have secrets, and a lot of times they have suspense. A lot of times they have danger in them, because that was kind of like my roots. But I love writing. What is hard for me with writing romance novels is, I, as a reader, if I start a book, I do not want to be able to figure out what's going to happen. Like I want to constantly be guessing and trying to figure out, where is this going? And in a romance novel, it's really hard to keep readers on their toes and keep them guessing. Whereas suspense novels, I can make the main character a bad guy. I can kill my main character. I can do all sorts of things, So it's much easier for me to keep readers on their toes and to keep them guessing and to catch them off guard, because I don't have really rules. I have this like huge playground, and I can do all of these cool things that I couldn't do with romance. So it's not that I'm like against romance novels. I love that community, and I love that world, and I love telling those stories. But creatively, I have so much more freedom on the suspense side.
I am resonating with everything that you are saying. Loving this conversation. Thank you, Alessandra. John Hebert, welcome to the conversation. Joining us from Northeast Ohio. Thank you, sir. Julie, welcome to the conversation. She says, this was such a great book. Julie, so great to see your name pop up. Julie is a mystery and thriller maven. Now, Julie, tell us, I know you read a lot, so tell us what you loved about Alessandra's book. Tell us, spill the tea, girl, spill the tea. Renee wants to know, so back to what you said about setting your suspense books in a very specific domestic suspense sort of setting in the wealthy parts of California. She wants to know, did you ever live in California? And let's add on, why do you choose to set them there?
It's a fantastic question. So first, I have lived in California, but only briefly. I lived in Coronado, which is a little island off of San Diego. And I lived there for a summer and worked there for a summer when I was in college. But interestingly enough, the way that these books all ended up in California was that my first book with this publisher was Every Last Secret. I personally think it's a fantastic book. So if you've never read me before, Every Last Secret is a great place to start. But when I first wrote that book, it was set in the Research Triangle Park area of North Carolina. And they lived in this very secluded, it was a very extremely wealthy couple, and they lived in this like secluded high up mountain. And in the winter, all of their rich friends would all like go down south to their warmer homes, and they would be kind of isolated up on this mountain. And so the story was about them and their new neighbors who were also staying for the winter, and like the twisted dynamics between these two couples. So that was how the book was originally written. And the publisher was like, this is great, but we'd really love to move it somewhere else, like that isn't quite so like isolated and snowy. And they were like, what do you think about moving it to California? And I was like, yeah, whatever. And so I didn't realize in making that transition to California, it really changed the feel of the book. They moved to Atherton. I moved it to Atherton, California, which is an extremely wealthy area, like near Silicon Valley area. And then like the whole neighborhood had a vibe and, it was like a character of its own. And it really changed kind of that whole feel. So then when we looked at like the next book, it was like, let's keep that vibe and that, that environment. So not all of the books are in Atherton. Actually, that's the only book that's been, but I have one in Beverly Hills and one, it's in Los Angeles. And this was nice because I love celebrities. I love drama. I love, so this allowed me, I can dip into like the Hollywood scene. So I can do a lot of different things. California has so many different personalities, like in the different towns and things. So I can do like a Malibu beach murder, and then I could do like more like in the valley or in the desert of California. There's just like so many different environments that I can jump into.
That I am so having hosted Alessandra for every single book, starting with Every Last Secret up to today's A Fatal Affair. Alessandra, I don't think I knew that you had originally set Every Last Secret in the Research Triangle of North Carolina.
Well-known
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated to learn that your editor actually moved. That your editor asked you to move the setting. So first of all, why had you set it in the Research Triangle, and then why do you think she moved it? Because it felt so natural that it would be in California. Yeah. All your books were in California. I thought you were a Cali girl.
No. Why I originally set it there was because I think originally the husband's company. One, I'm just much more familiar with the East Coast than I am to California. I've been to California a lot. I lived there and I used to go there a lot for books and Hollywood stuff. But it was just like that area was of interest to me, like Research Triangle Park. And there were a lot of tech startups and there was a lot of medical stuff. And he was he had a medical based company. And so I was just like, oh, I'll do it there. And then I liked the idea of them kind of, like normally you might not be super friendly with your neighbors, but if you're in a situation where you're kind of the only people there, and we have a lot of people where we live in Key West, a lot of people come down from like Asheville or from North Carolina area for the summer. So it makes sense. Like I'm envisioning all these like, empty mansions that are up there. And so that was kind of like the, I guess, crock pot that created that setting. But yeah, it is a much different feel in California. But that's something that also a lot of readers really like.
Yeah, exactly. I actually can't imagine an A.R. Torre book set in the Research Triangle in North Carolina, or frankly anywhere except California. It's so you. This is so funny. Okay. Good question. Is the book out already? Yes. So no, it is out tomorrow. Alessandra's coming on to give us the exclusive sneak peek. She's going to spill the tea, share her secrets, tell us all.
It'll be out at midnight, I guess. Midnight tonight. Yeah. So midnight, I guess, California time, I think, because I've sat up waiting for midnight. It doesn't go live. But I'm sure the user or Facebook person might be confused because someone else said they loved it. So we did have a big push from the publisher that went out advanced copies to reviewers. So if you go on Goodreads, like there are a lot of reviews already out for it.
But that is a perfect question because the book is out tomorrow, y'all. So you can pre-order right now from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore. That is, of course, Murder by the Book. So here is the link. Click and pre-order. And at midnight California time tonight, you too can get your hands on The World of Nora Kemp. And the scandalous love triangle turns deadly, turns murderous, and Nora finds herself smack dab in the crosshairs of a whole bushel full of trouble. So here's that link, no matter where you're watching from, Facebook or YouTube. Click and pre-order it. Canadian Courtney has entered the chat. Hi, Canadian Courtney. She says, I cannot wait to read this. You are a thriller genius, Missy. Your books are always a smash, and I have been a beloved fan since your very first book.
Oh, thank you, Courtney. That means so much. And it's just weird, like reading that and knowing that you're saying that about me. So it's really cool. Yeah. So thank you.
Yay. So Courtney is an amazing bookstagrammer, blogger, and book reviewer. And apparently, I did not know this about Canadian Courtney. She is also a huge A.R. Torre fan. So love to hear that. Renee says, happy early pub day. Yes, happy early pub day. Jennifer, welcome to the conversation, says, hi from Dublin, Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Alessandra, you are my absolute favorite author, and I cannot wait to read the new book.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope, and I don't know the Dublin time zone, so I don't know if y'all are, I'm sure you're ahead of us.
They're 6 hours ahead. So it'll be,
the
book will come out at 6 a.m. your time tomorrow morning, Jennifer. So
no, I think it'll come out 6 p.m. tonight. Wait.
Oh, yes. No, because so midnight in California will be
right.
9 a.m.
Yeah.
6 hours ahead of these guys.
You're right. Jennifer,
9 a.m.
Yeah, I know when it's coming.
I have now learned the time zone. I can tell you what time it is anywhere in the world because I've had to coordinate so many international time zones. So
yeah, so I was thinking it would drop at midnight her time, but I think we're all stuck on the California time zone. Probably.
Well, Jennifer, sometime between midnight and 9 a.m. your time, the book is going to drop and you can grab it and get your hands on Nora. She said she thought she was getting a preview. You are getting a preview. Here's the preview. Alessandra, let's give it.
Can we dive a little deeper? Yeah.
Tell us something about Nora, about this book, how did you come up with an idea of a woman in love with a man and his twin brother?
Yeah. So just to run through the characters in this book. So you have Nora, and Nora is one of Hollywood's biggest stars. She's an actress, but she's fairly new. She's been around like 5 or 6 years to the industry. And one of the reasons that she is so famous is because of her relationship with Hugh. And Hugh is like Hollywood's golden boy. He's perfect in every way. And he is Nora's fiance. They live together. And in Hollywood. And so they have this like Hollywood perfect, and everything is gearing up for their wedding, which is coming soon, which is going to be like the spectacle of the year. And so he's really brought her along and brought her into fame, though she is very talented as an actress. And then Hugh has a brother, and his brother is Trent, and his brother is like the bad boy of Hollywood. Has been getting into trouble kind of forever. And as like picture perfect and wonderful as Hugh is, Trent is like the one that's always making headlines, the one that like is a womanizer, the one that like is always going to say outrageous things. And he does more like the indie movies, and he's notoriously, famous, but it does not have near the wealth and the prestige and the respect that his brother has. So of course, Nora, you find out this fairly quickly in the book. So Nora has had some type of a relationship with both of them. I mean, not together, but she and she has like a long history with these brothers. So her heart is definitely pulled between the two. But when the book opens, Trent has been killed. So Trent is one of the dead bodies at Hugh's house. So there's Trent and another person who's dead. So the book kind of goes into that and figuring out how this crime scene happened and who's involved. So of course they're questioning Nora and Hugh, and they're diving into the investigation. And as that goes on, you are introduced to a bigger world of characters, and all of these characters are kind of, there's a missing child. There's a woman that's a mother and child that are missing. There's, a charity organization that's tied to the twins, and there's people hiding secrets in there. So there's a lot of other things going on, and it all kind of, comes together in the end. But there's also, it's an active murder investigation. So you're introduced to the detectives, and the team that's working on the case, and figuring out if this is an isolated incident or if there are potentially more people involved. So that's kind of like the world that you are brought into at the begining of this book.
Ooh. Okay, we have a good question here from Renee. She wants to know, Alessandra, did you ever date twins or siblings? Is this a memoir or a murder mystery?
I have never dated. I don't even know if I've met. I'm sure I've met. But I grew up in like a small town in Georgia, so I don't think we had any male twins or female twins at my high school. I've never dated twins. I've never dated siblings. I've always loved twins, though. Twins is kind of one of my hot buttons. Like I love to read about twins. I love to write about twins. I think this is the first book. This is like my 30th book, and I think this is the first book I've ever actually written about twins. But they've always been very interesting to me. And for Nora, it's hard because they look alike, but they act so different. So when she falls in love with one face, it's kind of I would think it'd be really hard if I was married to a twin. I think it would be hard for me, especially if the other twin I knew was in love with me. I mean, I don't know. It'd be hard. I don't know. I'm not saying I would cheat on my husband, but that seems really weird to me that there would be someone else who looks and sounds exactly like your husband that you're interacting with on a regular basis.
So this is so funny. So first of all, Alessandra, I had no idea that you and I had this in common. So I'm obsessed with twins. I wish I was a twin until I was 12 years old. I convinced myself I was a twin, but my twin had been kidnapped and someday we would be reunited because I'm so desperate to be a twin. I want to be a twin so bad. And it's funny because my husband dated a twin and my writing partner was married to the twin.
Wow. Oh, how interesting.
And I was jealous because I wasn't a twin. I know lots of twins and I know 2 triplets too.
That's really cool. I think what started it for a lot of us was Sweet Valley High. I don't know if you Sweet Valley High. I think that is single-handedly is responsible for like twin obsession for our entire generation. Because that seemed so cool. Like, yeah.
Wait, what was the other twin's name? Jessica and
maybe Elizabeth. Maybe.
Lauren? I'm not. Oh my God, why can't I think of Jessica's twin name? Anyway, we are all twin obsessed, and you're totally right. It's from Sweet Valley High. Canadian Courtney wants to know, Alessandra, what got you to become an author? Is it something you always wanted to do or something sparked this amazing, talented passion you have? P.S. She is so glad you pursued this career because, lady, you are meant to be doing this, queen. All right, spill the tea. Spill the tea.
So I always loved to write, but I wasn't I found a screenplay that I wrote when I was like 12. But in school we had a creative writing assignment where you had to write like a short story, and I turned in what I thought was this like masterpiece of fiction literature, and I got like a very tepid response from my teacher, and that was kind of the moment where I was like, oh, like this is something I really had fun doing, but obviously like I'm not very good at it, and so that was kind of like at that point, and I was like, I don't know, 11, 12, 13, I sort of dismissed any thought of being an author. And it wasn't like I sat down and had this deep thought. I hadn't even really thought about being an author. It was just like, oh, this assignment was really fun. But that sort of stopped me from ever thinking that I had any talent in it. I was always a reader. I was a huge bookworm. I read, at least a book a day, probably from age, 9 to, 16. And I would read anything and everything, sci-fi, everything except romance, of course, go figure. But it wasn't until, and I remember at some point being like, oh, it'd be so cool to be an editor. Like you could just read books for your job. Now I realize I would be a horrible editor. But I thought for a while, like, oh, maybe be an editor, but being an author seemed like something you had to know people or go to school for, or like have a connection, or I don't know. It just seemed like not an attainable thing for a normal person to do. So I never thought about it until 2012. I was in between jobs. I was trying to figure out kind of what I wanted to do with my life. And self-publishing was just like starting to gain traction. My mom was telling me about it. She was co-writing a book with someone. And so she was telling me about the process, and I was like, oh, it's so interesting that just the idea that I could write something and put it out there and no one would ever know, like, and if it flopped, like, who cares? And And I was like, I think like I'll just write something, just see what happens. And I read where like E.L. James was making $1 million a day. And I was like, okay, so if I could just do like a half of 1% of what E.L. James is doing, like I'll be rich. Like we're good to go. So I had time on my hands and I sat down, I wrote what ended up being a romance novel, and I just kind of stuck it up there. And if that had flopped, I really think I would have just been like, oh, well, that was fun. Like now I'm going to keep up the job search and I would go do something else. Like I feel extremely blessed and lucky that book took off, because then I was like, oh, like maybe I can do this and maybe I'm not bad at this. And then I had a book deal and suddenly I had another book I had to turn in. And so that really like swept me away. But it's interesting. I mean, I had a conversation with Colleen Hoover years ago about this, and we were talking about our first books, and she was kind of the same way. Like she, I think, has always loved to tell stories and she's very creative and whatever. But she was saying like if her first book had flopped, we would have been like, well, that was fun. And we would have done something else, And can you imagine like if we didn't have Colleen Hoover? Like it just seems crazy. But I think, the universe is trying to tell us like, don't give up on this, like pay attention to this, do more of this. And thank goodness that, at least for me, because I didn't have the confidence in my writing to, especially not, I was just talking to a new author the other day who's gotten like 90 rejections from agents, and she's been querying and she's been trying to go the traditional route. I never could have done that. Like it just wouldn't, I didn't have the confidence in myself.
Well, Canadian Courtney, thank you for this very thoughtful question, which has opened up this whole incredible conversation with Alessandra. And Alessandra, thank you for sharing your journey to publications, so transparently, because I certainly felt the same way as you. The idea of becoming an author did not feel accessible to someone like me. I thought you had to be some sort of fancy person.
Exactly. Like you got to live in New York, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, I will need like a creative writing degree, which I don't have.
Like an MFA from somewhere fancy and all these credentials, and you have to have fancy friends and great outfits, and I don't know, like have this whole life.
You've been writing books in a notebook since you were 4. I didn't do any of that. I just like to read books.
Exactly. So thank you for sharing this, because I think so many people feel like this. You did, I did, so many of us do, and opening up the conversation lets it know that that's possible for anyone. So I appreciate this. Gretchen, welcome to the conversation. She wants to know, Alessandra, did you say this is part of a trilogy? We need to know more.
No, I do have a trilogy under A.R. Torre, and that trilogy does have some sexual content. So it's like cyber sex, but anyways, it mentions sexual body parts. So I just like to warn everybody about that, because it is a little graphic at times. So that trilogy is called The Girl in 6E, or it's the Deanna Madden trilogy. So that is already out. It was published like 7 or 8 years ago. So that is out now. This and all of the books I've written in the last 4 years are all standalones. So this is a standalone.
I'm sorry, could you tell us the name of the trilogy one more time?
Yeah, it's The Girl in 6, like 6E. So I did not intend it to sound like sexy, but now I can't seem to say without it sounding like sexy. But it's apartment. She lives in apartment 6E.
Yes. Okay. The Girl in 6E is Alessandra's trilogy. Gretchen, thank you for asking, and thank you for clarifying. Y'all, Amanda is saying, holy smokes, this is so cool. It's so cool. Yes, thank you for sharing this, your journey to publication. Your 30th book is out tomorrow. Thank you for sharing the backstory of all of this. Amanda, it's so cool, isn't it, joining us live from YouTube? It's great to have you here. Everybody, we have 1 minute and 30 seconds left. I think I can fit in another question if anybody has any others. Renee wants to know what kind of book did your mom write? Yeah, I want to know about that too.
She wrote like a sea adventure romance, and according to her, it's horrible. I read it. I don't think it's horrible, but it was like a summer project that she did, and then she hasn't written anything since. But it was, her friend was writing a book and wanted a romance element, and so asked my mom if she would come in and kind of write one and co-write it with it. So that was their book that they did. And I'm not even sure if it's still for sale anymore. Yeah, but it was, that was 10 years ago. Yeah.
Jennifer saying, what is meant for you won't pass you. And what
I
a
like
perfect
that.
example you are of that. Oh, Jennifer, well said. And I love that expression. I actually keep it on my fireplace mantle, my little
I've never heard that before. Yeah,
what's
I love
meant for
that.
you won't pass you. And yes, Jennifer, I love that. It's such a wonderful faith building, confidence inspiring saying. And Alessandra is a perfect example of that. Thank you for saying that. And thank you for joining us here from Ireland.
Dublin.
Sylvia, welcome to the conversation, saying, I'm coming in late. I watched the replay. I love your writings.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you. Renee wants to know, do you prefer writing standalones or the trilogy, the series?
I prefer standalones 100%. My life would be so much easier if I wrote in series. But for me, the things that happen to my characters, it just seems unbelievable to me that there would then be more things that happen to these characters, you know? So I pack everything in that I know about these characters and what could possibly happen to them in that one book. And then The Girl in 60 was an exception. And I do want to write more books in that world, but I much, much, much prefer standalones.
I love that. Jennifer saying,
I like reading standalones better also.
Oh, okay. An interesting tidbit about A.R. Torre here. Jennifer saying it was such a great trilogy. It was so unique. Sunny, I think you hit send too soon. We only got the beginning there. Feel free to retype. Amanda saying, I can't think of anything to ask, but I love your books, especially Every Last Secret.
Oh,
Amanda,
that's my juicy baby. I like that book a lot.
And Amanda, you don't have to think of anything. That's a perfect comment. And we appreciate you being here so much. Gretchen saying, thank you for doing this. Gretchen, that's what we're all about. Renee saying, thank you. I'm going to read some of your books. Sunny, I'm not getting your comment. Renee sending all of her love. How long did it take you to write A Fatal Affair?
Great question. I had a hard deadline from the publisher on this book. And I was like rocking and rolling towards the deadline, which I'm always late on a deadline, which is probably why they were like, this is your deadline. Like, don't miss it. And I wrote the entire book and then decided that I hated it because I ended up going way romancy on it. Like there was this love affair. So I was like building the whole how this affair happened and this love triangle and situation. And I got to the end and I was like, this isn't working and I'm going to trash the whole thing, which I did. I threw away the entire book and I messaged my publisher and I said, I know that I have a deadline. Thankfully, this was like 3 weeks before because I was actually like ahead of time. I said,
oh my gosh.
I said that I'm done with the book. I could turn it in. I said, but I don't like it and I want to start from scratch. And so I tried to like fix and salvage and just delete and change. And I was like, nope, I just have to start over. And so I started over and they said, I only had 3 weeks at that time. And I was like, I'm going to try my best. But if there's any way, I know you said this was like a hard deadline and I couldn't go past it, but if there's any way I could just have like 10 more days, that would like make my life so much easier. And they were like, how about 2 weeks? So I was like, sold. So I wrote the second version in 5 weeks, something like that, 5 to 6 weeks.
Oh my God, 5 weeks.
Yeah. And it was like, I mean, I was up till 3 or 4 every night.
Wow.
But I loved the new version, and the new version had like plot. I mean, there's a lot I changed. I brought in new plot lines and different new characters and things like that. And a different ending. And but I knew like when I finished this, I'm like, this is it. Like, this is what it was supposed to be. So yeah. So technically, I guess it took me 5 or 6 weeks, but I don't know if you want to take into the 4 months that I spent on the first draft or not.
I think we do, because I think even when you scrap it, which by the way, my tender writer heart is clenching, is screaming, is wailing in solidarity with you. But all of that somehow informed your writing, even if it was what you didn't want to do. It's still,
It did 100%. Like my mind needed to work through that. And then I think some of it kind of hung back, but it was hard then because I was going through edits and I would remember scenes and things that I'd written in the first version. And in my mind, like they were here. And so at one point the editor's like, this doesn't make sense. Like, when did this happen? And I was like, oh, Maybe I didn't actually write that scene in this version. Maybe that was from the first version. Yeah.
Right. Oh my gosh. Oh, Silvio says, wait, what makes a series easier?
So a series is a lot easier. First of all, it's a lot easier to market because if you can sell someone on book one, then
Ooh.
they're invested and it's a lot easier. Like they want to buy book two and they want to buy book three. So a lot of times you just have to kind of do your proper marketing and sales job for book one, and then they'll read through the rest. But it's a lot of time building this world. So you're building these worlds, you're building these characters, you're building these characters' personalities and backstories and things like that. And with standalones, I have to start from scratch every time. Like I have an entirely new cast of characters that I have to figure out their personalities and what they wear and where they live and what pets they have and what their hangups are and what secrets are they keeping. Where if I only have to build that world one time and then I can write multiple books in that, then also like I'm introducing characters, which I'll use in future books. So the readers are getting to know them and I have more time to stretch out storylines. And I don't have to accomplish everything I want to accomplish in, 70,000 words. So that's what is supposed to make a series easier. But my writer brain is like I want to throw everything I can against going down this path. So yeah.
Great question, Sylvia. Thank you. Gretchen saying, I couldn't even imagine being done and trashing it. Gretchen, you and I are on the same page. She wants to know, was that the first time you've ever done that? Oh my God.
No. My worst book experience was a book called Tight. It was under the name Alessandra Torre. And I wrote that book 4 times in completely different ways so 4 times I had different outcomes. I had different point of views. I just could not get that dang book until finally it came together. But that was my worst experience. But that is not normal. Out of 30 books, like I had Tight, which was a disaster zone. And I had this book, and then I've had books that I've really done a ton of work in the edits and like the final draft versus the first draft look like almost completely different books, but I was working with that same dough. I wasn't just throwing out the dough and just starting all over. So really those 2 stories are kind of the only ones that I had to be like toss it away.
Well, thank God, because sounds very painful. Jennifer saying, wow, that is impressive. I hope you're enjoying some well-earned time off. Sylvia wants to know, do you ever dream about your characters?
No. Sometimes, a lot of times I'll get the idea for a book from a dream, and that dream will then breed into characters. But when I'm writing the book, you'd think in those 2 or 3 months when I'm thinking about them all the time, I would dream about them too. But I never do. At least I don't remember if I did.
Renee wants to know, will you be going on book tour for this one?
No.
This is the book tour, Renee. This is it. What more do you need besides mystery and thriller ravens? Nothing. There's nowhere to go but down.
Yeah. No, I won't. And I do very little traveling now. I go to Texas once a year for a book conference. And then other than that, other than vacations or something with my family. Yeah. So I won't be going on book tour for this.
Gretchen wants to know, what was the title of the 4 draft book? I'm curious to pick it up now.
It's called Tight, like if you tightly tie a knot, Tight. And it is under Alessandra, but it's heavy suspense. I would really almost say, but it is a romance book. But it is really heavy in suspense. And I really like it. So it's called Tight. Yeah.
So I'm going to pop that in the comments for you, Gretchen. It is right here is the link to grab it, so that you can get your hands on that 4 draft book. Renee saying, do you have another thriller in the works already?
I'm supposed to.
She's still resting from those 5 a.m.
Yeah, someone's like, I hope you have a good rest or whatever. It's like, I've rested for a year. I finished this book. I turned this book in a year ago. That tells you how long the editorial process and everything is. So I am 8,000 words. I'm 10% into a new book. I just signed the contract with my publisher on it. And we went back and forth with ideas for a while. So yeah, I have a new book in the works, but it probably won't come out until next year because that's how long the pre-publication and everything else process is.
Jennifer wants to know, what authors do you enjoy reading?
I love Karen Slaughter. I love Gillian Flynn, though Gillian won't write me a new book. I keep like, she's not productive enough for me. I'm waiting with bated breath. So I love Gillian Flynn. I love Karen Slaughter. I really used to love Lisa Gardner. I haven't read a Lisa Gardner book in a while, but that's just my own fault. I really like anything domestic suspense, anything that's kind of juicy. And I like anything. I like Frida McFadden. I've recently binged a bunch of Frida's books. And I really like Lucinda Berry. Lucinda Berry writes a fantastic book. So if it's got killers and secrets, like I'm there. But I don't read a ton anymore. I really am like at one book a year, right? At one book a month right now. Not a year. And then a lot of times when I finish a book, I'll read like 3 or 4, but then I won't read books for a while. So, but those are some of my favorite authors.
Renee is saying this is a great book tour.
It is a fantastic book tour. Yes.
Debbie wants to know, could you share, are you comfortable sharing anything more about what you're reading now? And Debbie,
actually, I was like, yeah, sure. And then I was like, how on earth would I explain this book? I'm writing it's a domestic suspense, and it's going to have two timelines. So a past timeline and a present timeline, and it's set in California. And I really don't know what else to say without giving it away. I'm sorry. I was like, yeah, I can tell you exactly what it's about. And then I realized that would spoil the entire twist of the book. But it's a domestic suspense. So it is going to cover, like 1 or 2 different married couples and like a series of murders and how those murders affect, the couples.
Well, we are out of time, y'all. We're actually over time, but we are having so much fun. It's hard to stop. Here once again is the pre-order link.
And if you're watching the replay, this is probably already out. So please.
Yay! Unless it's in the next few hours. Sylvia saying she loves reading dual timeline stories. Yes.
I do.
Well, y'all, I will be back tonight with Andy Bartz and Bob Bailey. So come back then. This is a wrap. Alessandra, we'll see you next year, I'm sure, because you are a productive writer, for interview number 5, same time, same place, for your favorite book tour stop, Mystery and Thriller Ravens. And I will see you all very soon. Jennifer saying thank you so much to both. Jennifer, thank you for being here.
Yeah,
thank you from Ireland. Thank you all for being here all over the place. We have Ireland, we have Arizona, we have Ohio, we have Southeast Florida, we have California, we've got Massachusetts. We're here all together, united in our love of mysteries and thrillers. Thank you for joining us. I will see you tonight. And Alessandra, I will see you next year.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah.
My pleasure.